Merry Christmas, all. I hope you're all feeling ready for the best time of year, because I sure do. And one of my favorite holiday traditions is rewatching the essential winter classics every year. You know the ones: Elf, National Lampoons, Polar Express, Christmas Story, whatever Grinch is your favorite, and so on. But the most important one of all for me might just be Home Alone. The 1990 film about a kid named Kevin McAllister, played by Macaulay Culkin, who is constantly getting picked on or overlooked by his rich family, ending up getting accidentally left at home by himself when everyone goes off on a Christmas trip. During their absence, he learns to appreciate his family for how important they really are to him, and has to defend his home from getting broken into by a pair of naughty burglars, the wet bandits named Harry and Marv, through a series of iconic traps. You love this film, I love this film, we all love this film. It was so successful for Fox that they decided to make a sequel with the same characters, and then 4 spin-off sequels, each with a different cast, all 4 of which are not exactly held in the highest regard. But today, we are going to rank all 6 of the movies. This is something I've wanted to do for a long time, and remember that this is all just my opinion, and I'd love to hear your thoughts as well. But without any more dawdling, let's start things off with the worst one of them all. Number 6.
Who are you?
Yeah, this is the worst one. While several of the other sequels have their defenders or their own pluses, everybody and their mother unanimously agrees that this one is atrocious. Hell, not even a theorizer could talk about this one without throwing shade. So in this one, the McAllister parents have gotten divorced.
What?
Yep, that came out of nowhere. And for Christmas, Kevin gets to stay at his dad's new fiance's huge smart house, alongside a very stern butler named Mr. Prescott, and an oh-so-innocent maid who's definitely not being set up as a twist villain. And of course, Kevin has to defend the house from now kidnapper Marv and his bumbling wife Vera. Yeah, I might as well address the elephant in the room right out of the gate. That being that these are meant to be the same characters we loved from the original. That's Kevin, that's Buzz, etc.
Gross.
Originally, this movie was supposed to be about the characters from the 3rd movie, but they changed things last minute to cash in on the classic cast, and the final product is just baffling. This is one of the corniest, most shameless, boring movies I've ever seen in my life. The biggest issue is that they treat these characters like they're the same ones we loved, with no acknowledgement that things are different at all. Not only does nobody look or feel like how they once did, not only is the divorced drama just pulled right out of nowhere and feeling way too melodramatic to be in a kid's movie, but the timeline now makes no sense. Here's a fun fact for you. There's a bit of a continuity error in the 2nd movie with Kevin saying that he's 10 years old, but in the 1st, he was 8 years old, despite these films only taking place a year apart. But they try to rectify that here by making Dollar Store Kevin 9 years old, implying that this takes place in between films? There's like 10 trillion reasons why that doesn't work. And it obviously can't take place afterwards because he's 9. So the movie already implodes in on itself. But that's not even including every other problem here. The bad guys are just awful. The whole reason Harry and Marv worked was that they had a unique dynamic. Smart guy and dumb guy. But here, brainless person and even more brainless person isn't a fun dynamic. It's embarrassing. Every line of dialogue feels like it was written by a robot and done in one take. The music is YouTube audio library quality. Kevin here looks like he's gonna eat my head off. And not once is the main character ever home alone. The trap section is incredibly half-assed. I swear it's over with in like 5 minutes. The stupid PowerPoint transitions between every scene piss me off. And need I even mention the ending? Because the dad's girlfriend had one scene alone with Kevin where she seemed rather pushy, now she has to spend Christmas all alone, without her maid, her butler, or her future husband. Yay, what a happy ending. Ugh. These filmmakers cared so little that I think they got the Wet Bandits designs backwards here. Because yeah, that's meant to be Marv, people, I'm not kidding. Speaking of which, apparently, Marv's original actor, Daniel Stern, was asked to reprise his role for this, but apparently he took one look at the script, turned it down, and said it was an offensive piece of garbage. I think he just summed up the movie perfectly. Honestly, outside of the girlfriend being kind of a hottie and one or two moments that did get a chuckle out of me, I gained nothing from watching it. Do not watch this movie, it's not even funny bad. It can fall into a wood chipper for all I care. Whew! Thankfully, that was the only movie on this list that I actively hate. Let's move on to the ones that are, in my opinion, mid. Number 5.
Tonight I'll be reviewing Home Alone 5.
We left Kevin home alone, and he's only 23!
Going into this list, I didn't exactly expect myself to rank this movie as low as I did, but what else should I expect from a TV movie? Home Alone 5, The Holiday Heist, follows the Baxter family as they move into their new house, which could potentially be haunted. Ooh! And as our main character Finn is playing video games with his online friend, a group of thieves try breaking into the house to steal a priceless piece of art in the family's basement. Now, I actually did see this one on TV as a kid a decade ago when I was on a Christmas trip with family to Montana, and I thought it was fine, but I'm pretty sure this is the movie that everybody forgets even existed, and I can see why. It's not insulting or heartwarming enough to be memorable, it doesn't really do anything uniquely offensive, it's just forgettable and lame. The production values are definitely a step up from last time though, I'll give it that. Plus, a few of the funniest moments in any Home Alone sequel can be found here.
I just play video games.
But this might have the most cliche writing out of any of these. Ooh, the sulky teenage sister is constantly on her phone. Ooh, video games will rot your brain. Have you ever considered interacting with real people? Ooh, ooh. When again did this movie come out? 2012? Yikes. At least the ending was kinda sweet, but there's not much else to say here. It's not awful, but it's not worthy of your time either. I'm struggling to even come up with anything else to say about it, so let's move on. Number 4.
Ah, they're spies now!
Home Alone 3. The one people thought was so terrible when it came out, completely unaware of the sewage that would come afterwards. If the fourth movie was the long haul of the Home Alone franchise, then this is the Jurassic Park 3 of the franchise, in terms of both reputation and other details. So, a little background, the first two movies were directed by Christopher Columbus and written by John Hughes. This time though, Hughes came back, but instead of Columbus we have Raja Gosnell. That guy. Yippee! This movie was also the first to not be centered around Kevin and crew, but instead Alex, a little boy who ends up receiving an RC car during the winter season, only to discover that it contains a super secret microchip made for a North Korean missile that can bypass government supervision, which means that 4 terrorist spies are now trying to break into Alex's home to get it back. Yeah, that was quite the jump. Burglaries and family dilemma, international espionage, why the heck not? Why does every film franchise feel the need to have one installment in the middle be randomly about spies and stuff? Am I allowed to make a joke here? Probably not. It also doesn't help that the spies are somehow able to be outwitted by this little child. Like, really? Despite that very obvious problem, and the fact that the writing isn't on par with the previous films at all, this wasn't a bad watch. It takes a while for it to get going, but once it does, it is absolutely insane. The film at least has a decent hook, the character interactions aren't painful or anything, Alex himself was actually kinda likable in this, and by far the most interesting thing about this movie is getting to see young Black Widow herself, Scarlett Johansson, in this as Alex's sister. Best of luck to her being in Jurassic World Rebirth next year, by the way. Please don't suck, please don't suck. But anyways, when people online tell you, hey, Home Alone 3 wasn't that bad, well, they're right, it wasn't that bad. I'm probably never gonna watch it again after this, but credit where credit is due. Number 3.
Ugh, this is garbage. I don't know why they're always trying to remake the classics.
Okay, I'll admit it's a bit wrong of me to rank this movie as high as I have. People are probably gonna get pretty mad at me for doing so. How could you put this above 3? But you know what? Screw it. This might be the movie on this list that I have the most to say about. Home Sweet Home Alone was released on Disney Plus in 2021 after Disney had bought out Fox and wanted to cash in on a few of their old nostalgic properties, and it definitely shows here. The amount of needless callbacks to the originals in this is more than a little egregious. And I get why some people might hate this one the most, likely because they didn't even know the other sequels existed upon its release. And a tagline like that on your poster doesn't exactly help. That being said, I just kind of followed along with what everybody else said about this movie until I decided to check it out for myself earlier this year. And if I'm being honest, I think this is the better of the fake Home Alones personally. You can tell a lot of the cast and crew, which is comprised entirely of talented people, were trying their best to save this dead-on-arrival movie. There were actually a handful of jokes or remarks that did get a laugh out of me.
Alright, Internet. Show me your worst. Well played, Mum and Dad.
The characters have a sort of believable snippiness and bite to them, while never completely foregoing the emotional core that the movie's supposed to have. And the general production quality of everything here is such a step up compared to previous flicks, you have no idea. The plot, though, is about a British boy named Maxwell Mercer getting left behind as his family travels to Japan for Christmas, and a pair of people try breaking into his home to get something, yada yada, we all know how this goes by now. But the curveball comes from who you're supposed to have sympathy for here. Max himself is not exactly a likable protagonist. He's incredibly rude and condescending to people around him, while not really going through a strong character arc, and his relationship with his mom feels incredibly half-baked, especially since the movie relies so much on retreading familiar elements and music to fill in the emotion. But you want to know who are likable here? The burglars. This sweet couple named Pam and Jeff McKenzie, who just want their expensive doll back, which they believe that Max had stolen from them. They're the people we really care about, and they're very endearing, having completely noble goals of simply getting the doll back to sell it so they can save their house, therefore saving their family from poverty. But that causes a problem when the trap section shows up, because instead of laughing at bad guys getting their deserved misfortune, you're watching innocents get put through borderline torture. It's ironic, isn't it, that the trap sequence, arguably the most hyped up part of these movies, is the low point of this one. I don't want to watch poor Sugar Bear and Aaron from The Office get continually beaten up. He's hurting me, Pam.
Me too.
Why is he doing this to us, Pam? And man, some of the 2020s lingo talk used here is painful.
Hey, Bethany, is this a good time for a selfie in front of an Uber? Hashtag ill judge.
Coupled with several comedic moments that go on for just way too long. Didn't I say that I liked things in this? Oh yeah. Because this is the one fake sequel that is actually 100% set in the same continuity as the real films, no, 4 is not canon, that never existed.
Know your f***ing place, trash!
Anyways, we learn that Kevin went on to create a McAllister home security business, and that he prank calls his brother Buzz every year, who is now an Illinois police officer, about a child being left behind during the holiday season. That is hilarious, and is totally something they would do. The remake of the iconic Angels with Filthy Souls movie from the classic films that plays on the TV is something I can actually imagine existing. Even the idea of the MacGuffin in this basically being a factory error that goes for hundreds of thousands on eBay is particularly funny to me. Even the music by John Debney, when it's not copying melodies, is pretty good. I mean, heck, I use the track Cousin Chaos in my videos like all the time. But you want to know the real reason I have such a weird bias for this movie? And no, this isn't another case of the not cool effect. Watch this video if you want to know what that was all about. It's because of when it came out. 2021 was an imperfect but unique period of my life. A sort of eye of the storm between the stress of COVID and the complications that would fall upon me in the years following. And November and December were definitely the peak of it all. A time of pure joy. Vacationing to faraway snowlands to see close friends, discovering new things, enjoying big releases, school group gift exchanges, new diecast scores for my Cars collection. It held the turning point where my YouTube channel started to actually get good, etc. And all the while, I was in anticipation for big things that were yet to come, not knowing that a few of those would let me down. And because this movie came out around then, whenever I rewatch it, it behaves as a sort of time capsule for a simpler era. So, because of that, and because this movie wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it could have been, it is the best of the fake sequels for me personally. Although that's not saying much. Anything is better than 4, 5 is just a hunk of nothing, and 3, I don't know, I guess my little crush for Ellie Kemper is overpowering any connection I have to a film made by Mr. I Directed the Smurfs. Good lord. But with that all out of the way, let's move on to the good movies. Number 2.
What kind of idiots do you have working here?
The finest in New York.
Ah yes, the sequel that just about everyone feels at home when watching, even though it's not actually set at home. In this one, Kevin, the real one this time, don't worry, has to go on vacation to Florida with his family, only to get separated at the airport and end up in New York. Taking advantage of the opportunity to see one of the biggest cities in the world, he runs into a very stalkery hotel concierge, a surprisingly sweet bird lady, and the wet bandits from the first film, now called the Sticky Bandits, who are out for revenge. And all the expected hijinks and emotions ensue. I think a lot of people will agree with me when I say that this is the one Home Alone sequel that we are all guaranteed to want to watch with the original every year. So much so that I might actually have more childhood nostalgia for this one than the first. But it's not just memories that make me like this movie. Everyone in the cast and crew returned for this, and the end result reflects that. That said, it does have some problems. The general style and order of events are for the most part copy-pasted from the first, even retreading the family drama sadly, which kinda implies that they didn't really learn their lesson from the first, so that kinda sucks. The believability of its narrative with all the conveniences that allow these characters to come together again is a little hard to stomach. Plus, the emotional core isn't quite as strong. Macaulay Culkin's performance is a bit flat at times.
This is the greatest action of my life.
And they do go a bit overboard with some of those traps. However, despite all of those complaints, it's still such a good time that can manage to capture the magic of the original, sometimes even surpassing it. The scenery is dazzling, the music is great, the direction is sound, the performances are still top-notch, and it does actually succeed as a sequel to an extent. The stakes are higher, the scope is grander, things feel much bigger than before, even if very familiar in places. The comedy is great, and you have to have a heart made of stone to not smile at that ending. And need I even mention Tim Curry as the hotel concierge? Yes, I must. I am obligated by law to do so. I will be shot in the head if I don't.
Have a lovely day.
He absolutely steals the show in every second of screen time he's given, and it results in one of the best transitions in film history. I almost just wish he was the main antagonist altogether. So despite all of its hiccups, I love this movie to bits and will gladly have it as my close number 2. And number 1 is...
That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
Were you at all expecting this spot to be for anything else? This is one of those instances where the phrase, "you can't beat the original," holds true for me. Everything about this movie still holds up wonderfully 35 years later. The cozy, Christmassy direction from Mr. Chris Columbus himself, the beyond iconic score by John Williams, the ideas feeling very fresh and fun, and you can just sense all of the passion and pure joy from everyone involved. Every actor is giving it their all, from Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern, to John Candy and Catherine O'Hara, to Macaulay Culkin's pitch-perfect performance as Kevin.
This house is so full of people, it makes me sick. When I grow up and get married, I'm living alone.
He's the ideal mix of realistic, sympathetic, devilish, and sweet, and the emotional connection between him and Old Man Marley through their similarities is beautiful. They go to great lengths to allow this premise of a kid being left at home while his family is on vacation to actually feel believable, explaining every little plot hole imaginable and letting the circumstances fall perfectly into place. Kevin's whole arc of appreciating his family feels so sincere. The traps that he sets up to fend off the burglars are entertaining, of course, never going too far or feeling unearned. but the main highlight of the movie is the heartwarming reconciliation between Kevin and his mother, and that tear-jerking ending with just a simple hand wave between two happy characters. Oh my gosh, this movie is so incredible, guys. If you haven't watched it again this holiday season, go and do yourself the favor. It's just as nice as you remember it being. But oh my gosh, guys, I'm totally forgetting what my real favorite Home Alone movie is. A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. I'm just messing with ya. Okay, in all seriousness, there you have it. All 6 Home Alone movies ranked. In recap, my opinions on them are that the first 2 are hood classics, 3 and 6 are weird, 5 is the very definition of mid, and 4 belongs in the deepest, darkest pits of hell. You know, despite so many of these movies being bad, they can never really taint my love for the good ones. They could make 15 more of them tomorrow, but it'll never ruin the beauty of this wonderful story of a little boy discovering what it really means for him to love his family through a series of bangs to the head and old film noir tricks. And with that, we've reached the end of 2024. It's been a pretty good year for the channel, from reviews to robots, from not cool to Night at the Museum. And I'm curious to know, would you like to see me rank stuff more often in the future? I certainly would. I have a few ideas laid upon the horizon, and we shall see later on as to what those are. Merry Christmas, you filthy animal, and a Happy New Year. See you in the next one.